Welcome to the 30-Minute Hour. It's the personal development podcast for entrepreneurs and executive leaders. We're looking to level up and become unstoppable. I'm your host, Eric Twiggs, your procrastination prevention partner. Joining me as always, you know him as the super CEO, the business strategist extraordinaire, and all around good guy, Ted Fells.
Happy Monday.
Yes, it is. It is certainly a happy Monday. And today, we're going to talk about how to exit your business without leaving.
Mm.
You know, we always hear these stories, Ted, about people doing these big financial exits and riding off into the sunset. But today, we're going to learn about how you can actually exit your business without leaving it.
Okay.
And that might actually work out better for most of the population. So let's go ahead. This is such an exciting topic that I think we should just get right to it, Ted.
Jump right into it.
That's right.
Jump into it.
We're gonna
Stop playing around. Jump
That's,
into it.
that's right. We gotta stop playing on this Monday. All right, here you go. So our guest is the author and illustrator of Exit Without Leaving, and the founder of Living Water Consulting, where he and his team have helped hundreds of business leaders transform their leadership, scale their operations, and add more revenue to their bottom line. Please join me in welcoming to the show Harrison Tash.
Eric and Ted, thank you for having me on. I feel privileged to be here.
Well,
Yeah, welcome. Glad to have you on. When I heard the name of your book, when you and I were talking, I'm like, oh man, yeah, this makes a lot of sense. We definitely have to have him on the show. But I want to give people the kind of the background perspective. And so you were an undergraduate at Indiana Institute of Technology. So I'm just curious, like, what was your vision for your career back when you were back during those undergraduate days?
Oh man, I didn't know we were going to go so far back. I started off just really wanting to make impact, not necessarily make a ton of money, right?
mm,
And today, I would say not much has changed. I've not chased money; I've chased passion. And so when I was at Indiana Tech, I was searching for some of those jobs like that. That's what my degree was for, was criminal justice. I was like, I want to go make an impact and try to find something purposeful. What I found is that I wasn't able to use my God-given skills and talents with that degree. So I went back to my master's and got that in organizational development, and I found this real awesome niche helping companies. And so that's kind of where it all led. Though it started under painful leadership, that's where I learned the most. You guys probably understand this. If the listeners are thinking about painful leadership, someone you used to work for or you still do that you just didn't want to work for. I worked for a small business where it was painful. It was bad leadership. It was terrible leadership. It was unethical. And I thought, man, there's like 100 and some people that work here, and they're all terrified of this guy. And that, after my master's, got me stepped into, I want to be on a mission to help small businesses, medium businesses, and even corporations, their leadership teams, figure out how to run a business, ones that they feel like they're not handcuffed to, and people want to come to and work for every day. So that's kind of where it all led.
Wow. All right. So here's my question, Harrison. So how is it that like there are other people working for the same bad boss and they just complained at the water cooler, where you took this pain and frustration and turned it into a whole other thing? So what's the difference? Like, how do you explain that? Because we see this, we see people who sit in a cab and get frustrated. Then we see the one person that sits in the cab and decides to start Uber.
Okay, I don't really know. Everything's built on the back of giants before us, right?
Yeah.
I heard Sylvester Stallone talk at a at one of his award ceremonies, and he said, "I'm only the sum of everyone I've ever met." And
Mhm.
so, to me, I kind of had an entrepreneurial mindset dad. I had friends that had entrepreneurs as dads, and I kind of saw people throughout my lifetime, different women, men that had that kind of bone in their body. I guess I just gravitated towards it. I liked it. So I don't know. Some people ask, are you birds with it, or is it something you learn? And to me, it's probably just a little bit of both, depending on the situation.
Yeah, I think my takeaway from this part of the conversation is like you have to pay attention to your frustrations, right?
Oh
Pay attention
man,
to your.
yeah.
It's easy to complain, right? But I think you have to pay attention because that could be an unserved business area. That could be something that maybe you are called to make better.
Yeah, I'll give a second part of this answer that kind of piggybacks on what you just said. I believe there's this greatness in all of us to really solve problems. And this world is filled with problems. So it's literally about taking a problem and figuring out, can you solve it to help somebody's need? And here's what I've learned. You solve one person's need, and you're probably solving thousands of people's needs if you go out there and try to figure out where those problems are, because you're not alone. It's kind of like when you're in a room and someone's talking and they said, anybody have questions? And then you're like, well, yeah, I got this question, but I don't want to look dumb, right? But as soon as someone spits something out and they're asking the question, you're like, that was my question, right? So there's 1,000 people that have the same need, the same problem, and it's something to be solved. So in my eyes, a piece of the difference between someone that actually does something about it and someone who doesn't is that you have to care less about what people think, and you got to care more about helping people solve their problems.
Great stuff. Great stuff. So Ted, we getting nuggets and boulders already, and it's early in
Oh,
the episode. Man.
Nuggets. I'm getting nuggets from you guys.
So Harrison, like, what advice if you could go back to be a mentor to the undergraduate version of yourself, knowing what you now know? What advice would you give to that version of yourself?
Don't chase money. Don't chase money. I
mhm.
think I've been there. I've chased money. I've tried to figure out how to make more of it, and I've always been happier. I've always found more purpose in trying to figure out not only how to solve people's problems, but then go to another step, which is how to use my God-given skills and talents. I mean, we all have them. We think that we see someone like, well, they can sing so beautifully, like, oh, they're so awesome. Like, I don't have that. We get into this, like, we get into a downward spiral of just giving ourselves pity. But we all have talents, and so I think it's our mission to figure out how to use those God-given skills and talents to the best of our abilities. So that's what I would tell myself, is just try to serve others by using your talents.
Man, that's good to know because I was always thinking to myself, kind of envious of Eric's ability to sing so wonderfully, and just
Yeah.
focus on basically what you're saying, Harrison, is focus on my own God given talents, and and don't hate on Eric's ability to
There's
sing.
Right,
there's
right.
only one Ted Fells, man. There's only one Ted Fells. Come on.
Exactly.
You know what? Hey, I'll give you one more thing on this, that if everyone's listening, if you look at your thumb and you see that thumbprint, that is yours. Like, God literally gave you this one thumbprint, and we just spend too much time worrying about what people think and trying to figure out why they're so much better than we are. Like, just use your God-given skills and talents and try to figure it out, right? And just serve people while doing it.
No, I think
That's
that's really
great.
true. Yeah. So you're the founder of Living Water Consulting. So
Yes.
first off, let's talk about the name. Like, how did you arrive at the name Living Water Consulting?
Yeah, I try to give everything back to God. I mean, everyone has their own spiritual journey, but I try to give everything back to God. It living water comes out of the Bible. It's out of the book of John, and there's other books that reference it as well. And so anyways, it's literally comes from there. I don't know how deep you want to go into that, but essentially that's where it comes from. And I believe that, again, that there's so much to give back to people and to God, and that's what I wanted to do in our consulting practice. And every business we work with, beyond that is like some are Christian, some are not. Like it really, we don't say we only work with this type of business. We work with all sorts of businesses. But what I find is that everyone can find purpose into helping others. So if you're a CEO of a company, and let's say it's $20 million, you're making 20 million revenue, you can give back to your employees, and that is going to feel great. Provide them a great place to work, provide them with an honorable, ethical person that is truly trying to serve others. Like, people just love that. They want to work for companies like that. And that's what builds culture. And that's what we're all about, is helping people not only build the culture that they want, but also have the results that they want.
Okay. And who's your ideal client, and how specifically do you serve them?
Yeah, ideal client. I mean, we say small to medium-sized businesses, and that kind of ranges from a lot of different things. But we say as long as you have at least 10 people on your team, that's typically who we serve. We serve a team, right? So as long as you have 10 people on your team, and revenue is vain, so that just varies in industry. So we're really looking for people count. So that's kind of our minimum. That if you're a solo entrepreneur and you only got a couple people, we're probably not your best consulting firm, because it's going to be hard for you to get the resources to do it. That's just called coaching. So if you want coaching, we're here all day, but we help companies in very tangible ways. Ideal client, though, is someone who, honestly, they know where they want to go, and they have a vision, somewhat of a vision, may not be clearly defined, but they somewhat know what they want to do, but they don't know how to get there. That could be as simple as, we want to grow our revenue from 5 million to 10 million, or we want to go from 200 clients to 400 clients. They have an idea of what they want. They're just not entirely sure how to get there. And if they do know how to get there, it just feels messy. So they need someone to help them come in and take the chaos to clarity and figure out what that looks like. And ideally, that's what it looks like. And even the best ran companies that we've worked with, I mean, companies that are in the $500 million range that we've worked with, they have such a great team, but they want a third party perspective to come in and say, what are we missing? And those are just as good as the people that don't even know, right? So across the board, again, small, medium-sized businesses, 10 plus as a minimum of people is what we're looking for.
Wow. Go ahead, Ted. You want to say something?
So just kind of touching on that, it'll be great to hear about maybe one of your kind of success stories. You don't have to mention a company name or anything, but like when you came in, this is what they were looking for, and then how you helped them. And
yeah. We one of the recent success stories, I think, it stands out, is that we had a CEO who was very analytical, and he had built this company, up to like a $50 million company. It's a great sized company. And when he came in, we're asking him, what do you need help with? He's like, I just, honestly, I don't know what's going to get me to the next step. And so we did an org assessment with him, which means we come in either online or in person. And in this scenario, we were able to do both. And it's asking all the great questions to figure out where you are today. And what we found is he didn't actually have a leadership team. He had managers, but not a leadership team. And so over the course of about a year and a half, we identified the key positions he didn't even have in a position in the actual company. We also identified the people that were already ready to take certain positions. And then we took the existing management team and started elevating certain individuals into the leadership team. And then it got us in. Once we were able to hit that foundation where we had the team in place, then we were able to do strategy. Then we were able to figure out what's your vision and work backwards from that vision and figure out, hey, what's on the horizon in the next 3 to 5 years? What's coming up in the next 10 years? and then really figure out what's the highest priority objectives that we've got to hit in the next 3 to 5 years. And then we just start boiling those down into simple goals. Small wins lead to big success. Once we were able to do that, it's literally chipping away until we figure out what works and what doesn't. And I think people get this so complex. They're like, oh, these big companies like Apple and they did it all. So, they did it all at once and it was all so great. It's like, no, these companies built over time. And we're all waiting for that one moment where everything cracks and it just goes, right? And that's really what holds companies back, is when they start to live in their own paradigm where they think that they're never going to get the big break. They think they're never going to get those big clients. They think they're never going to get those awesome people that want to work for them, that can do amazing things. And it's like, no, it's one step at a time. It's daily habits, daily disciplines. And so we really taught them how to break down those big objectives in the tiny wins daily, and then we tracked them, and that's the key. 70% of us need accountability, and that's what we brought in and said, okay, now that you have all these big grand visions and how we're going to get there, and we're able to put out these objectives, now we're going to talk about accountability. How do we hold ourselves accountable and the people around us accountable?
You said something, Harrison, though, when you talked about managers and leaders. Like, what's the difference between, like, how do you know, okay, Joe is a manager and could be a leader, but, Tom is a manager but can't be a leader?
Yeah. I think so many people have a lot of different opinions on this. What's the manager? What's a leader? At the end of the day, I boil it down that a healthy leader, and this is part of chapter 1, but a healthy leader has to embrace the gig. And the gig is pretty simple, but yet the simple things in life are the hardest things in life, right? I mean, hey, you want to lose some weight? Go to the gym every day and do something, but yet we don't, right? The simple things can be the hardest things. So the gig is this: it's grow, invest, and guide. Grow, invest, and guide. Grow is a mindset. It's literally, how do you help people adopt a healthy mindset? One that not only knows who they are, so awareness, they also know their ability, and they know how to track their own performance and where they want to go. So awareness, ability, and performance, right? And that's the mindset for grow. But the I is invest. And invest is time and energy. Are they looking to invest in the next person? Are they willing to give people time and energy to grow the portion of your business that needs to be grown? Can they take the time and can they take their energy and give it to somebody else? Because our businesses will not grow unless we do that. And the last one is guide, which is more about stewarding a relationship. But on the flip side, because this is always about us and them, it's always about you and them. The stewarding piece is more about restraint. So there's a thing we call accountable guidance, and that means you're not avoiding people, but you're also not controlling them. And it's somewhere in between is accountable guidance. So grow, invest, guide. That's the gig. And so to me, that's the difference between a leader or a healthy leader and a manager. Someone that can embrace those things.
Wow. Harrison, you made that sound so easy, but I'm still thinking about staff, and I'm like, okay, so what is it that is there something I see in that person to think, okay, you're a leader? Is it, I guess, some of the past experiences that I've seen being around that person, and maybe how they've mentored or tried to mentor others? I mean, what's going to make me think this person is a gig person?
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that I leave out a lot of times are the very obvious things, right? I leave those out and go to the heart of it, because, we've, prior to starting this company, so I'd hired hundreds of people, right? And I never knew a manager that said, I really love them. They're just awesome. And they're not very competent, but I'm going to hire them. Right. They always have to have competence in what they're doing. But you know what I've also learned? There's a thing called the Dunning-Kruger effect. And essentially it says that we will be overconfident in our abilities in a particular area. And when you start to hear someone that are like, oh, I could do that. Oh man, I used to do that and I was expert at that. I could absolutely come in and do that for your business. You know what? Well, you better watch out and you better ask 1,000 more questions and figure out, right? You better do some aptitude tests. You better have them in for a job shadow, because you're probably getting someone in your business that knows how to talk but doesn't know how to do, right? So there's some things. I mean, you got to have competence. In the grow mindset, we talk about ability, awareness, ability, and performance. Those three things are like necessities, beyond some of the more behavioral things. You have to be aware. I've learned that a lot of people are aware, but they don't know what to do about it. Right. Well, I know I'm kind of lazy, but I don't know what to do. Right. And so that's where the abilities there, the awareness is there. You got to have the ability to change it. And you also got to have performance of like, here's how we track. Here's what we're doing. Here's where I'm going. So to me, to answer your question, yes, the competence is like a ground zero. We got to be right there, and they got to have the competence first. Just to give one more scenario, a lot of companies that we work with are like, hey, aren't you going to worry about our product? And I'm like, well, listen, we're here to focus on people and process, because if you don't have a good product, I hope you're not in business. So, and don't get me wrong, there are companies that do need to work on their product. Those are more product driven companies. But at the end of the day, we help with people and process more than we do product. So again, I assume some things that's a starting point. So if you don't have that, then let's not work together, because you need to work on your product, make sure that's good first. Or you need to work on your competence, because we can't hire you until that's good first, right?
Wow.
So do you help out with do you help out with the hiring process? 'Cause I think the hiring process is key. So I think sometimes you can look at somebody and a lot of times the leaders, they have a track record of they're getting promoted. They went into this situation. It was doing 10 grand. They left. It's doing 25 grand. And here's what they did they kind of have that pattern. And then you have the people who are more just kind of the manager type person, where they really can't tell you any of those details. And that's kind of what I've seen. I think it starts in that interview process to really differentiate between who's more of a manager and who's more of that leader.
Hey, you know what? I'm willing to have the conversation with you guys. I mean, this is, interview process is one of my favorite things to work with companies on. As far as it's just fun for me. It's not like our main bread and butter, obviously, but it's fun. We actually created a turnkey solution that has processes, checklists, onboarding, training schedules. We have turnkey solutions where we say, what's your industry? And then we tailor it to that, and then we flip it over to you and say, now let's teach your team how to do this. I think there are a few things that people need to do in the interview process to really figure this out. One is slow down. Slow down. When in the world do you become good friends with someone by speeding up the process of becoming a friend, right? And I know people like to talk about like the dating scenario. They're like, oh man, speed date, right? Like, at the end of the day, it's like you got to slow down and you got to get to know them, which means you got to ask a lot of good questions. The first thing we'll teach you in the interview process is to be curious. Be extremely curious. Open-ended questions. And when they answer it, you better have at least 2 or 3 questions as follow-ups of, well, tell me more about that scenario, right? If you're going to ask them about, tell me a time when you were a team player, right? and they give you that time, and you're like, that is so good. Like, you must have practiced that for hours. I'm going to give you 2 or 3 more questions on top of that and say, well, wait a minute. You said that in that scenario for you were a team player because you went and did a one-on-one meetings with everyone before the meeting so that you could prep them and you got them all ready and stuff. And they're going through all these things, and you're like, that's really good. I mean, we need that kind of leader in our business. I'm going to ask you to think about, well, wait a minute. You went into one of those one-on-one meetings. What did those look like? What did you say? Right? How did they respond when you went in there? And what are some things you do to create trust with those people to be able to go in there and actually talk about something that's useful, right? So you just ask 1,000 more questions and people get tired of this. I tell people all the time, I'm like, we're going to ask you the same question in multiple ways and you're going to get tired of it. But at the end of the day, what you're doing is you're ensuring that they know themselves and they're able to tell you actually how they will respond. And you're going to hear it in a lot of different ways. Personality tests do the same thing. They ask you the same thing 20 different times to figure out who you really are.
Yeah, and that's part of the score. Is if you're contradicting yourself throughout the test will pick up on that.
Yeah, and it'll give you an accuracy a lot of times, right? Yeah.
Right.
Wow. Thank you.
This is fascinating stuff. I mean, that is tremendously valuable because people are just getting better and better at getting through these interviews and putting their best face forward and telling you everything you want to hear and not being able to back it up with performance. So definitely kudos to you for focusing on the onboarding and hiring process.
I'll tell you one thing too. One of the feedback that we get repeatedly, and I'm serious, this happens a lot because again, this isn't one of our main things that we do with companies, but it is something that we have a turnkey solution to say, here, now let's put it in place. And one of the things we hear a lot back in the feedback loop is we were really good at trying to sell ourselves, and what you taught us is how to make sure that it's a good fit for both sides. So it's them selling you just as much as you're selling them, but it's also them just being, you're inviting them to be curious about you just as much as you're curious about them. And that's the biggest difference. If you're going into, trying to interview someone and you're just talking about yourselves and then you're asking these closed-ended questions, you're not really doing much, right? You're really just helping them through the interview process.
Good stuff. So let's talk about your book. I love the title, Exit Without Leaving. So what was it that motivated you to write it?
I just saw a lot of really good businesses all the way from like $1 million to like $500 million. Like I said, these privately held, owner-led type businesses. And I just saw a good portion of these owners, or I say owners because there could be multiple owners in the business, right? I saw them feel like they were trapped in the business. And it was a lot of times because of the behavior and the limited beliefs that they had. And I was honestly tired of hearing people talk about build a business to sell it, right? I'm like, I know so many people that don't want to sell their business. They just want to know how to run it better. And so I think that there's just a good portion of the population that aren't interested in just selling their business. They're interested in learning how to grow it and to empower people to live out their skills and talents to be able to literally choose what they want to work on. I'll tell you guys a quick story. I got a great friend of mine that started off as a client and now we're like best friends. And he tells me all the time, he's like, I want to go work on those floors. I want to be able to work next to my guys when I want to. I want to be able to do that. And I'm like, good for you. Like, if you want to build a business where you have the power to really choose that as what you want to do, then let's help you get there, right? But I saw the opposite. I saw a lot of people feel almost trapped in their business, answering phone calls, not knowing what to do. Some people even had a lot of time, but they didn't even know what to do with it. They're like, I don't know how to grow this to the next level. I'm just going to like kind of sit back and hope that it works out, right? So anyways, that's why I wrote it. I think there's a good population that really need to hear the framework of how to do that.
And here's the thing too, for a lot of people, selling the business isn't going to be as lucrative for them, right? Because if you think about it, let's say if you have a broker that you use, that's going to be 10% of the selling price. If the IRS taxes could be another 40%, depending on what you got going on. That's fit whatever. So you sell your business for, I don't know, $1 million, half of that. I mean, you're left with $500,000.
Get back to work. Get back to work. Get back to work. Maybe not.
The culture. Yeah, you're right, Ted. Get back to work. The culture is serial entrepreneur. I'm going to
Right.
start this business and sell it. Start and sell. At what point do you want to deepen a business versus sell it? And at the end of the day, you're right. If you could, let's go with like the average business in America, and let's say that you're able to maybe make, let's just say like $100,000 net profit. Okay. If you could double that in the next 5 years and then double that again in 10 years, your net margins really gives you a life worth living. I mean, you can
Exactly.
feel very successful, but what do you got to do that? You have to create a self-sustaining business, one that thrives with you because you're the owner, but it doesn't depend on you, right? That's what we got to get to. And so anyways, yeah, that's definitely an admirable way to grow a business is to work towards that.
Yeah. So can you share some practical tips from the book? We don't want to give the book away, all the details of the book away, but just some practical tips. We want people to go back and buy the book, though.
Give us the Cliff Note version, Harrison.
Yeah. Just something from your book to help people to
All
exit
right.
without leaving.
Yeah, all right. I'll give you the cliff notes here. There are 2 parts of the book that I think that if you read all the way through, you're going to get so much out of it because of the way we break it down. So the first part is what we call the foundational 4. These are the 4 things that if you don't build a business on these 4 things, inevitably you will become what you've forged, which is a cog in the machine. You're just another thing in the midst of a lot of sharks out there, and there's nothing that makes you special. And I'm always working towards helping businesses become unique because I've seen it so much where small, medium-sized businesses, are trying to compete with the biggest corporations out there. And I'm like, what are you doing? Why are you cutting your prices? Why are you trying to, try to expand the way they do? That's not you, right? You need to work on bringing the most unique value to your target audience and bring so much value to them that they can't help to talk about your business and expand it for you. And so that's the foundational 4, which is it's built on healthy leaders. It's built on vision. It's built on purpose and values. And if you can build a business on those 4 things, the other 4, which is what we call the operational 4, those things will have the legs to actually take off. And that is, you have to have a winning strategy. You absolutely have to have systems. And core promises are one of the things that we see that it's in order to be unique, you have to have core promises. And then the last one is outcomes. You've got to learn to actually, you have to learn to look at the results and say, where do we need to go from here? Right. I believe it's Peter Drucker that says, or actually, no, I think it's Deming that actually says this one, but he says, in God we trust, all others bring data, right? So, outcomes is all about, tracking those results, right? It's like you've got to know what's going on in your business to then, here's something for your audience. I mean, I'm just going to add, just think about this. How many of you in the audience right now, how many of you know your P&L, your balance sheet, and your cash flow right now? If you're running a business, how many of you guys know that, right? That's like tracking your results on a broad level. How many of you know what the leaders in your business are doing on a weekly basis? Are they developing the people around them? Are they investing in themselves? Are they literally looking at the problems that they can be solved beyond their job title, right? So not only do you track the data, but you got to track the behavior just as much.
That's good stuff. There's just so many little paths we could go down. We're gonna have to have you back at some point because this is just a lot, and I have a lot of other things I want to ask you. And yeah, this is one of those episodes I'm gonna have to go back and listen again to get the different frameworks and stuff that you've got going on with this.
So Harrison, what are you doing tomorrow? We'll bring you back on tomorrow. Same time.
Same time.
Part two. There you go.
For you guys, man, you just let me know.
So,
There
I'm
you
here.
go. There you go.
all right, good stuff. So, you're the host of the People Development Podcast. So, tell us about that. What will people gain when they tune in to the People Development Podcast?
Well, we're looking for great guys like you. We're looking for entrepreneurs, authors. We kind of section it out into multiple ways. We try to get authors that have great influence, that have taken the time to really put their thoughts together. We're also looking for founders, owners, and CEOs, right? People that have a story to tell of how they built a business, how they leveled up their business again. And then, we do have some thought leadership on there. It's just like, we'll have, some opportunity to just share some of our own framework. We'll also have other people on there to talk about some of their frameworks. And so anyways, that's the podcast. And what you're going to gain from it is just awesome people that are more concerned about developing people than they are about making money. And, from that perspective, you're going to hear a lot of successful stories from people that have done that. And that's what they chased. And so we're looking for like-minded people is really, at the end of the day, that's what we're looking for.
Fantastic. So Harrison, we are now at Ted's favorite part of the show. It's called Write This Down.
Harrison, I don't like this part of the show.
Ted couldn't wait for us to get to this part. All right.
Let's skip this part of the show because this is that part, Harrison, man, that you've been dropping so much knowledge throughout, and just the fact that I may have to follow behind you in this segment of the show is just it's the worst ever, but we must go. So let's go.
Yes. So this is where we go around and we share at least one takeaway from today's episode that we want people to write down so they can level up. So Harrison, you're the guest of honor. What do the people need to write down from today's show?
I think you guys kind of emphasize this, so I'm gonna just repeat it. But we can always search for competent people, but that's just one part that's going to grow your business. So don't only search for competence, but search for people that are truly willing to embrace the gig. They're willing to grow, invest, and guide people to help you scale your business. And hopefully it'll be less painful because you pick the right people.
All right. Write that down. Gig. All right, Ted.
So this right here is really why I don't like this section, right? Because I was thinking of which areas. I said, man, that whole interview section seemed really cool. I'll touch on that. And then I like the gig. And he just took the interview part and the gig part and just kind of pulled it all together. So you may hear some of the same things, but the thing that really resonated with me was when you said, like, slow down on the interview process, like slow down. Like, we always are looking for that person to fill a gap, right? We got to get somebody to fill that gap, whether it's internally or on a client site. And it's like, we've been interviewing, we've been looking at all these candidates, and we just want that next person to be the person so bad, right? Because if it's something to fill a client need, that client every day is like, okay, where's the person? Where's the person? Where's the person? It's been 2 days and we've had a vacancy here, right? And you're like, I gotta get that person, right? Or if it's somebody internally, right? Like, you want somebody that can come in and be invested in the organization and all that kind of stuff. And, and I think about all the experiences with interviews and hires and all of that. And it's like, it's interesting how you kind of know sometimes, like, right away if that's the person or not, right? Yeah. Like, if it's a person, like I had a situation with a person, and the person, was supposed to get back to me on a certain day, and they did, and I kind of gave them the benefit of the doubt on that, and it was never right after that. Right? It was just that person was always, was always something going on there, right? And so, so when you go through that process, and I think you're bringing people back multiple times and interviewing them multiple times and going deeper into the questioning and all that, I think you really kind of find out, like what they're made of, and then how much they really want to be a part of your, your organization, right? And the thing about, I think you always have to, you always feel like you got to get it right, but especially in a small organization,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like I feel like in a large organization, you can't tell me this company's got 1,000 people, like they get it right every time. But in a small organization, when you're talking 10 to 20 people, like, that whole saying about, having somebody that's a small fish in a big pond, or a big fish in a small pond, like you got to hit on your, like everybody's got to be a big fish in a small organization, and you just got to get it right. So maybe, because that 1, 2 people, they impact culture so much.
Yeah.
I think they rattle culture in a small organization where they may not necessarily do that in a large organization. So because you have to take some time to do it and get it right, because you're so frustrated if you don't make the right decision, and then it's harder to, I guess it's harder to get them out than it is, so you ought to make it, I guess, equally challenging to make the decision to bring them in. You might as well do that up front. So yeah, so that whole area around interviewing and all of that, and the team, and trying to make sure you orchestrate, you pull that team together just right. That really resonated the most with me.
Yeah, and Ted, just to piggyback on what you just said, I would view every communication, every handshake, every appearance as your little indicators, right?
Mm,
And you're exactly right. I always tell people never go by just giving, very broad deadlines. Like, be very specific. So if you're requesting them to give you a resume, their or their project list or whatever, you say, I'll take that by Tuesday by 4 p.m.
mhm,
And if they give it to you by 4:01, that's an indicator,
mm,
right? And I'm serious, 4:01, then you didn't do your due diligence to put it in a half hour early, right?
sure.
So, anyways, I agree with you. Those
Good
are
point.
little indicators you got to pay attention to, no doubt.
Good point. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you have to figure that person is doing everything they can to be impressive, right?
Yeah.
And so if they're not impressing you, if they're late during the interview, just imagine once they get the position what they're going to be doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It only goes downhill.
Yeah.
So no, this is good stuff. Hopefully everybody's writing down, and you may need to get another pen because your pen is running out of ink. But my contribution, it kind of goes back, Harrison, when you were talking about success being more of a gradual thing. But I think a lot of people are looking for that silver bullet,
Oh, yeah.
right? People are always asking me, "Oh man, what's the one thing I can do to that?" It doesn't really work that way, right? It's you have to do a lot of the right things over a sustained period of time. So that's my takeaway. There is no silver bullet. And by the way, if you find one, let me know what it is. I'll start using it. you know,
That's right. That's right.
right? But until then, trust us. There is no silver bullet. It's gradual,
Yeah.
and you definitely need somebody like Harrison in your corner to make sure that you're taking the right steps that ultimately lead to success.
Absolutely.
So Harrison, this has been a fantastic episode. What can people do to get a copy of your book? What's the best way for people to connect with you to get a copy of the book?
Yeah. It's on Barnes and Noble. It's also on Amazon. But if you want to connect directly, you can contact us at connect@consultlivingwater.com. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can also find our team on LinkedIn if you type in Living Water Consulting. But I'll tell you this: I'm always fascinated when people read the book and they send me something on it. We're getting emails that people send to us, or text even, and I tell you, it's just fun. So if you pick up the book, just let us know what you think, good, bad, or ugly. We're here for it. I'll take one on the chin if you don't really like it. So I appreciate it.
All right. Well, good stuff. So thank you, Harrison, for sharing everything that you shared on today's episode. And then, speaking of sharing, for those of you listening and watching, don't forget to share the show.
Yes.
Share the show.
Share this show. I tell you what, I spent about an hour listening to your guys' show today, and you got a subscriber right here. So
Awesome.
I was listening to it on Spotify. So yeah, if you guys haven't subscribed to the show, what are you doing? Just
Listen to him. Listen to him.
Ted,
subscribe.
we definitely have to have Harrison back.
I told you tomorrow. Bring him back tomorrow, Eric. Bring him back tomorrow.
Oh man, I'm telling you. Yeah, so definitely speaking of Spotify, yeah, we're on Apple Podcasts and we're on Spotify. We're on all those other podcasting platforms as well. All you have to do is subscribe or follow, and that way you don't miss a future episode of the 30-minute hour. So again, thank you, Harrison, for being an awesome guest. Today we talked about how to exit your business without leaving, and just keep in mind as you're going through this that you can't allow perfect to become the enemy of progress. That's our time for this week. And until next time, have a great one.
Thank you guys. Appreciate it.